Oh. The Minish Cap is considered to be one of the most underrated Game Boy Advance games of all time. It's one of the gems that was just kind of lost in time during the Game Boy Advance's life cycle. A game that, for the most part, is exclusive to the console. The Minish Cap was created by the same team that created Oracle of Seasons and Ages from the look of things. Flagship and Capcom have a tendency to create original villains for games they work on, and this looks to be no exception. Looking to expand on their creature and four swords, yeah, they made that too. They ended up creating this game with Nintendo's approval, hence the legend of the Minish people, as well as the origin of Vaati, the demon of the four swords. I never had a chance to play this game growing up. I sadly only played the game on the Wii U Virtual Console. When I did, however, I toted it was my favorite 2D Zelda game of all time, even compared to Link to the Past. Opinions do change over time, however. After a second playthrough, is this still one of my favorite Zelda titles? Or did the magic rub off once I took off the hat of excitement? Let's find out as I dive in once more in the world of the Minish and fight an evil sorcerer. Let's take on Vaati! So, the game starts up and Link is tasked to deliver a sword to the royal palace. Turns out he's a blacksmith apprentice in this game. While Link is supposed to deliver a sword to the fighting tourney, he does pal around with this game's version of Zelda. Come to find out they are childhood friends in this game. When checking out the festival, you hear the setup. The people of Hyrule are celebrating a time in the past when a hero joined forces with the Minish people and defeated a great evil. Well, another evil is unfortunately here. The winning of the fighting tourney is a dark mage named Vaati, and instead of taking your sword, he curses Zelda to turn into stone, and opens a dark chest releasing monsters into the world. While doing this, he also breaks the legendary sword as well, which is now your job to seek out the Minish people, also known as the Pikori, and fix this legendary blade. You are a child after all, and only children can see this small race of people. How convenient! Link eventually travels to the woods, and meeting a hat bird-like thing named Ezlo, they decide to team up. It turns out Ezlo can shrink Link down to the size of a Pikori himself. Eventually, this leads him in a quest to gather 4 special elements to reforge the blade into what eventually will become the Four Swords. Meanwhile, Vaati isn't exactly done yet, and eventually disposes of the King of Hyrule and takes his place, barring Link out of the castle and basically taking over. See, Vaati is after a power called the Light Force. Eventually, towards the end of the game, Vaati learns the Light Force is within Princess Zelda, so he goes to extract it, which will end up killing the princess. Eventually, you have the ultimate clash with Vaati and slay the beast. After he dies, the castle begins crumbling, but Zelda, now free of stone, uses a hat he dropped to restore the castle and everyone back to life. So, Vaati was using a powerful hat called the Mage's Cap, which was created by his mentor, Ezlo. Yeah, the guy you're wearing on your head. Ezlo and Vaati were both Pikori mages. Ezlo asks for forgiveness for making a powerful hat, restores himself to his original form, and eats the hell out of the castle before saying goodbye. Everything is back to normal and the day is saved. So is the writing good? Well, yes and no. The story itself is fantastic, actually. For a Zelda story not relying on Ganon, it's pretty damn good. Sure, it isn't winning any awards for originality, but it gets its job done well. The character dialogue, on the other hand, is meh at best. It isn't terrible, but not many of the characters outside of Ezlo and Vaati stand out. Zelda is also good, but only shows up at the beginning of the game and at the butt end. Even side characters are kind of boring, outside their references to other Zelda games, like Malon. Yeah, Malon is here, and that's about all her character is. She sells milk, and you have to solve a puzzle at a ranch with her father, who's passed out, by the way. Yeah, whoop-dee-doo. Even the sages Din, Nairu, and Feora make cameos. and they're still lacking personality. So while the characters don't have as much interesting things to say, there is thankfully plenty of charm here. Most of the characters you find are cameos from other Zelda games, giving characters a charm they lack in dialogue, especially if you're a fan of Wind Waker. The game borrows heavily from the Wind Waker art style and aesthetic, and in turn has plenty of characters from that game. Probably why I enjoyed this so much on my first time through. Yeah, I really love Wind Waker. Second favorite Zelda game. So of course, people nostalgic to that game will like Minish Cap their first time through. Not all the characters are references, and not all the cameos are Wind Waker. There are few between Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, and the Oracle games as well. There are also regions based around the older Zelda games. A swamp in which you need Pegasus boots, and a story from Skyward Sword, but you know, much better. Oh wait, this predates Skyward Sword. My bad. The setting looks fantastic for a Game Boy Advance as well. Every area is different enough to stand on its own. Really, the only downside is the music, which, while not bad, reuses a lot of tunes from other Zelda games, and has to fight the Game Boy Advance's horrible sound chip. Really, this game has plenty of charm to every enemy, boss design, world, settings. It does help make up for a lackluster dialogue, which most of these characters have while you play the game. So, talking about the gameplay, this game plays remarkably similar to A Link to the Past. For those of you who haven't played A Link to the Past, you can use whatever items you have set to the A or B button. If you are near something you can grab, you can use the R button to grab it, or alternatively, you can read or talk to whatever it is too. You gain items over time, but the basic sword swinging and shield actions are there, as well as bombs, arrows, and a boomerang. Ha! Ha ha! I said rang. You know, like the phone rang, you old boomer. Didn't you hear it? Gotcha. Anyway, you can also dig using mole mitts and charge forward using the Pegasus boot. There's also a cane that can flip things over and has some weird effects. Overall, though, this game basically plays how you'd expect it. For the most part, it is easy enough to figure out what items are supposed to do what when it, you know, comes up in puzzles. Wall with cracks on it? Bombs. Obvious target out of reach? Arrows. It's simple and yet very effective gameplay that we've had for a while, but it works perfectly fine here. The game is indeed fun to play. The levels, however, aren't exactly as fun as the gameplay. Unfortunately, this is where things begin to fall behind on comparing it to other titles. First up, let's talk about the Overworld. Oftentimes to progress, you have to stumble upon a tiny cave and solve a puzzle in said cave to progress. This isn't bad if you know the general direction to travel in which the map does provide, but sometimes you think you need an item when all along it was duplication pads you needed, hidden in an obscure cave that you probably didn't notice right away. Oh, right, I didn't explain those. Occasionally when you upgrade the sword, the Minish blade, with each element you gain the ability to duplicate Link. They can help you push blocks and on a rare occasion help you fight with your sword. Cool. It can be a pain keeping all of these links alive, and to duplicate, explaining the duplication process is a little complicated, but here's how it goes. First off, you can charge your sword to do a spin attack. It's a very common thing you can do in Legend of Zelda games. But to charge up a spin attack in this game is a tad bit of a longer process. When you get to that point, a gauge appears, and it's longer than hell. You need to charge up that entire gauge. Once you do this, you can duplicate by stepping on a few pads that you want the formation in. Basically, you have to maneuver Link around these pads to make sure you don't accidentally duplicate one in the wrong direction. For puzzle solving, this isn't as terrible as it sounds. The windup is long, sure, but puzzles are often fun. In dungeons. In Overworld, you have to find these pads, which can suck if you think small-looking caves are just side quest fodder. These are also annoying to work in battle, but luckily it shows up very rarely. The next issue is growing and shrinking in the overworld exploration. Once again, in dungeons, shrinking and growing isn't too bad, but it isn't great because again, it's a longer process. See, the shrinking has a quick cutscene, and then you're small. When you're small, it takes you longer to trek long distances. In dungeons, this sometimes can be a longer walk, and it slows down the game a lot. In the overworld, or in town, this can take forever, it seems. And if you're trying to solve a puzzle between growing and shrinking, this makes side questing, or even the main quest, slower than dial-up. If you're too young to know what dial-up is, let's just say it's super slow. However, if you think every level is a drag in this game, you'd actually be wrong. The dungeons are really well designed and are real award winners here. The boss fights are fun too. A fight in the sky, fighting regular enemies but giant, the machine from Wind Waker. These fights are really fun overall. And then we get to Vaati himself. He can be a bit annoying, but once you figure out what to do, Vaati is a test of skill that is worth the climactic adventure. So, while the overworld is trash, the dungeons and boss fights do everything correctly, even with the occasional annoying enemy or puzzle. But what happens after sealing Vaati away? After the final blow is struck, what keeps Link adventuring? Well, let's take a look. There are some hidden upgrades to items and weapons you can find around the map. There are plenty of heart pieces all about. But most of the side quests will have you hunting tablet pieces. See, there's these things called keystones in the game. You find the left side of every keystone in existence, and the people of Hyrule all find the right sides of the keystones. If you find someone and complete a keystone with them, something will happen, fixing you a treasure or side quest event. Different color keystones get you different things. So instead of helping people and solving puzzles, most of the side quests are just this. Not all, but most. These aren't as fun as they could be, and they can get old pretty quickly. Finding people with certain keystones can be a hassle as well, and if you run out of a particular keystone and need it for a quest, you have to slay, find treasure, or buy it to complete a side quest. The other major collectible in this game is seashells! Yeah! Alright. They're actually figurine collectibles. You trade in seashells like, Smash Brothers tokens, and the higher number of seashells, the more likely you are to find a new figurine. These figures are basically bosses, NPCs, and enemies in the game. They're fun, and they give you a little bit of information on each creature and NPC that you find, but the process to trade the seashells is so damn slow! Literally as bad as shrinking on the overworld! I'd almost rather listen to this. Seriously, side questing just isn't as fun as other Zelda games, or many other games in general. None of them feel unique or super rewarding. As such, I didn't honestly do much this time around. There are several side quests not needing keystones, but feeding a dog isn't exactly exciting either. Upgrading weapons is nice, but they were so late in the game, I just slayed Vaati with normal equipment. So yeah, not really all that fun. So overall, there really isn't anything bad about Minish Cap, but it doesn't quite hold up as well as I remember either. While the overall story is perfectly fine, characters are just kind of boring. They have charm since they're almost all references to different games, but outside of that, they have no personality. If this is your first Zelda game, you probably won't like any of the side characters at all. Still, there's plenty of charm to the game. Music, location, sprite quality are all top-notch here. The gameplay does a great job as well. Then we falter again in level design because being too spacious for small Link and boring overworld. Speaking of boring, the side quests are too. They aren't bad, they work, but they aren't anything to write home about. Honestly, if I have to rate the game, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. Or a good rating, if you will. If you like having a portable game with plenty of charm and spunk, this game is for you. The dungeons are great, and dialogue and writing is pretty good among the main cast, but outside of the building up of some extra health, I'd avoid pretty much everything else as much as you can. Focus on the main quest as much as possible, and you'll probably enjoy this title well enough. That's all the time I have to discuss Minish Cap, however. Vaati is disposed of, and since I can't get 4 swords, he will stay that way unless I talk about him maybe being playable in Smash Brothers. As for the next main review, it's looking like it's going to be Doom from 2016. That wasn't even on my original hit list, but hey, surprises happen. Until then, take care of my minions. One more thing. Don't necessarily take my ratings too awfully seriously. A 7 out of 10 isn't necessarily a bad rating per se. It just means that if I was going to recommend this game to, like, Zelda fans or fans of this type of genre, I would probably roughly estimate that 70% of them would really like the game, and about 30% might not. So, yeah, don't take that too awfully seriously as, oh man, it's not 9, bro, I'm not gonna do that. It's just a rating, it's just an opinion anyway, but, you know, I just figured I'd let you guys know on how I'm going to be rating systems going on from here on out. So, take care. Bye-bye.